Okay. We are Parsha's Vayishlach. It is starting at chapter 32, verse 4 is where we're starting Parsha's Vayishlach. First of all, not connected to Parsha, I just want to point out whatever. Mention that today is the 14th of the month of Kislev, Yudalid Kislev. It happens to be the anniversary of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, the Lavach Rebbe and Rebbetzin. So it's the Rebbe spoke a lot about. It's interesting, like when he spoke about what was important about this day, he spoke about it as being a day that connects the Hasidim to the Rebbe. Like, kind of, how do I get into this place? Is because I married the Rebbe's daughter. The Rebbe's Chaymushka was the previous Rebbe's daughter, and our Rebbe married her. So he's like that. This wedding kind of solidified the relationship between the Rebbe and the Chassidim, because they're else, that kind of thing. It's also like a nice day to celebrate Jewish weddings and marriages in general. So we're going to have a Farbrengen tonight with Gila. So that's happening tonight. So that's today. Parsha Vayishlach. Last week we dealt with Yaakov in Lavan's house. We didn't deal with everything there. We dealt with some of the stuff there. Now here we are. Okay. Basically our Parsha has a couple of main themes. The first few aliyahs, the first three aliyahs pretty much cover 4 aliyahs on this, cover Yaakov's encounter with Esav, the preparation, the actually after. So we're going to get back to that because that's something that I want to talk about. So that's going to be like the bulk of the Parsha is going to talk about Yaakov and Esav meeting. Then we have chapter 34 is going to be, which is about the 5th aliyah, is going to be the story of Dinah going out to see the daughters of Shechem, and Shechem seeing her and taking her and raping her, and the whole story of Dinah, which we're going to hopefully get to. After that, we meet a random person who we had not heard of before. We hear of Devorah, who is the nursemaid of Rivka, who passes away. We have her death recorded there. Rashi tells us that the same time that Devorah passes away, Rivka passes away, but the Torah doesn't mention her death because people would curse the womb that gave birth to Esav. It was such a terrible person. So her death isn't actually mentioned explicitly in the Chumash, but she passes away the same time as Devorah does. After that, we have Rachel giving birth to Binyamin and passing away in childbirth over there, and Yaakov burying her what's called at the side of the road, which is Beis Lechem, instead of taking her to Maras Machpelah. I don't think we're going to get to that conversation today, but it's a worthy one. And the end of the parsha, we have the genealogy of Esav, all his kings and all the people who ruled and who they rolled the kings and the castles and the kingdoms that he had. That's the end of the parsha. So that there, yay! Guess what? We actually finished the parsha for once. A little bit of a cheat, I know, but still, at least we got it. At least we got the story. Okay. And Yitzchak passed away all the way at the end of the parsha also. Exactly. So Yitzchak passed away at the end of the parsha. Thank you. I think that's the whole parsha. I think that's the parsha. We have a bunch of stuff going on over here. We're going to start at the beginning. The beginning really is connected to last week's parsha, right? The end of last week's parsha, we had the angels from Eretz Yisrael coming to meet Yaakov, to escort him back into Eretz Yisrael. And the end of last week's parsha, just before those angels, was his last encounter with Lavan. Okay? Now, one of the things that is our forefather who represents the Jews of Gullus in our lives. We Lavan kind of Gullus. Right? What is Lavan, the name? What does it mean? Lavan, what is Lavan? White. Lavan is white. So the Lavan Gullus is the person who says, I love you. I have your best interests at heart. These are my grandchildren. How could you ever think I would do something to harm you or them? And really, to sort of unpack that is very, very, very hard. It takes Yaakov 20 years to sort of do this and get out of Lavan, because those bonds of love that hold us down, and the place of justice of I'm right and I have righteousness on my side, and to be delighted in their, I'm so amazing and I'm so awesome, and to get back, wait a second, no, you might be Lavan, you might be dressed in whatever garb makes you look holier and special and wonderful, but really you're not. And to get to that, and then to get to where you need to do, and to extricate yourself from that, and to at the same time not just get yourself out, but to do your mission. Your mission there was to take out all the sparks of holiness that were in that place. That's very, very, very hard. And then we have somebody like Esav. Esav is in your face. I want to kill you. I want you dead. We're going to have a showdown. And when you have to deal, I'm not saying it's easy. Yaakov has like a very stressful, let's say, day, and plus dealing with Esav, and then it's over. But it's so much easier to deal with the enemy who says to your face, I hate you and I want you dead. The person who's like, I love you and we should just be brothers and we should just, have some cohesive melting pot and chilling together and everything's going to be wonderful. We'll just all blend. It's much harder to say, that's not what I should be doing. That's not really what I'm supposed to be doing. So the whole Lavan saga, even though it was only one Parsha, that takes 20 years of Yaakov's life. It's mamish, it's 20 years of his life dealing with Lavan and pulling himself out from that whole situation. And now the beginning of our Parsha starts. Yaakov is trying to figure out, what do we do? We're coming back to the land of Israel. There are, in fact, commentators who fault Yaakov for kind of poking the sleeping giant. There was no WhatsApp, there was no New York Times. Like, how was Esav going to know that Yaakov came back to the country? Except that Yaakov, our Parsha starts out that Yaakov sends messengers to Esav to find out how he's doing or what's going on. So the Ramban and other commentators like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you bother him? Why wouldn't you just kind of like, you don't have to sneak. He's a big entourage. He's not mamish sneaking, but like, do you have to like throw up flares and say, hey, we're back. Hello, how's everything going? So once we're going to get into the Chassidus, it makes more sense why you have to speak to him. But a lot of the Parsha were like, why would you open this conversation at all? Esav's on the other side of the country. Like, everything, you'll be settled and fine before anything ever comes up. And we'll get to the other thing. So the first thing he does, if you have a Chumash and you're looking inside, in chapter 32, verse 5, Yaakov sends these messengers to check out Esav, to say to Esav, and he gives them a message of what to say to them. He says to go tell them, to my master, to Esav, this is what your servant Yaakov says, in Lavan Garti, I lived with Lavan, and I tarried till there, which is also one of those words we just don't use in modern language. You don't talk about tarrying any place, right? Vayihili Shar V'Chamar had a donkey and an ox and a donkey and a thing and so that. And I'm sending you gifts to find favor in your eyes. And the angels come back and they say, no go. This is just not happening. Okay, your brother's coming. He has 400 men with him, and he is not looking. This does not look nice and sweet for you. And then Yaakov, it says that Vayir Yaakov Ma'od, he gets very afraid. Vayetzer lo, and he's distressed, and so he divides the people that he divides his camp, and he starts coming up with his strategy. How am I going to deal with my brother? Right? So he says, okay, fine. We're going to divide the camp. If one camp gets attacked, then the other camp will survive. Okay. And then he starts to daven. Rashi says the Yaakov is going to basically do three different things. He's going to prepare for war, which is the dividing of the camp situation. He's going to daven to Hashem, and he's going to do doron, which is bribery or gifts, however you want to call it. Today we might call it, and because the gift, doron means a gift. Doron means a gift. So yeah, matana is also a gift. Doron is they're different. I don't know what the difference is exactly. That's a good question for Rivka, but I don't know what the difference between Doron and matana. But we do find kids who are named Doron, but we don't find so many kids named matana because I think that would just be. Oh, that's true. That's true. But we don't have girls. We don't have matana. Maybe we do. Okay, I stand corrected. I'm going to back up on the name situation. I don't know. So he's going to do this elaborate gift that he's going to start doing, and he's going to daven, and he's going to prepare for war. I want to back up a second, okay? Rashi says that when he says, "Go tell him I live with Esav," in pasuk. I never became somebody important. I was always as if a newcomer. I was like always new. I was never, there's nothing to hate me. I was supposed to be, the brachas were supposed to make me great and wonderful, and they did not really make me. They didn't. I was a newcomer for the 20 years that I was there. I was never really integrated into the community. So there's nothing to hate me for because those brachas didn't come true. Davar acher. Another thing that Rashi says, Garti b'gematria taryag. It's in a numerical value of taryag 613. You can just see it very easily because if you switch the letters around, you see them all there. Klomar im Lavan harasha garti, that I lived with Lavan, the wicked Lavan, v'taryag mitzvah shamarti, and I kept all the 613 mitzvahs. V'lo lamaditi mima'asav harayim, and I did not learn from his terrible ways. Okay, so the Rebbe asked a few questions on this, and he's like, first of all, he did not keep 613 mitzvahs, right? We know he was not in the land of Israel. There were mitzvahs that are dependent on the land of Israel. He didn't do those. He didn't have kibbut of Abe for 20 years. Like, how could you say that he did all the mitzvahs? So the Rebbe points out that Rashi doesn't say that asiti, that I did them, but shamarti, that I guarded them. And we know that when we learn about a mitzvah, there is a certain place, even though we can't actually do it right now, but there is that yearning and that waiting and that anticipation for it that gives us like the credit of not having done the mitzvah because you haven't actually done the mitzvah, but keeping the mitzvah alive in your life. That there are times in our lives that we can't actually do the mitzvah, but are we learning about it and are we talking about it and are we thinking about it and saying, oh, I wish I could have a chance to do this? That's part of what we're talking about over here. Parenthetically, it's interesting that one of the things that the Rebbe instituted was learning Rambam. That there's a whole cycle of learning Rambam, and one of the reasons that the Rebbe said to learn, the only one who categorizes halachically categorizes. We've been in exile for so many years. We'll figure it out. Rambam actually codifies halachically. What do you do about karbanos, and what do you do about this and tumen tahara, all these kind of stuff that are going on in the Rambam that are not practical for our lives right now. And my take on it is, if I can give my own opinion, which is kind of based on learning, but we're talking about it and we're learning about it and we're yearning for it. I wish the day will come. We can't wait for when Mashiach's going to come and we're going to be able to implement all these things that till now we haven't had the power to do. We can only talk about it. We can only learn about it. And that's kind of, one of the things that we're getting over here from Yaakov. And the other thing that the Rebbe points out is that if you're saying that you guarded all the mitzvahs, then why are you saying I didn't learn from his bad ways? Like, why do I say both, right? So the Rebbe points out that in a way, Yaakov is not kicking himself, but he's sort of bemoaning the fact that I did not become as righteous as Lavan was wicked. That he took such delight in every single trick that he pulled and every kind of, I'm not going to say the words in English, like every single scheme and every single thing. Lavan was so enthralled with all of that. And Yaakov says, I didn't get that passion for my mitzvahs that he has for his bad. I didn't learn from his bad behavior. What was I supposed to learn from his bad behavior? That passion and that excitement. And how can I do it better? And how can I get another person? Yaakov's like, I didn't get that. I didn't quite get that passion from him. And a way of kind of saying, oh, chaval, like I was there for so long and I didn't get it from him. But if you could flip the same thing also in the other direction and say that there is a way for us to keep all 613 mitzvahs, and we're still following Lavan. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a way that we could be Jewish and kosher and Shabbos and everything, and somehow our headspace is our culture is still Lavan. You know, how we celebrate and what we do, and that sort of like that I don't want to say warning, but maybe a warning, or that pay attention to that. Is it possible to be doing everything right and somehow get it all wrong? You know, you're checking all the boxes, but somehow in the spirit of things, you aren't living you're living a technically Jewish life. You're doing all the 613 mitzvahs, but are we still following Lavan? Are we? I don't even know if it's, I don't know. I'm not even saying doing it for the wrong reasons. We're dressing tznius, but our fashion comes from Paris or from wherever. We're eating kosher. I had a conversation with a friend of mine years ago. Let me finish my sentence and then you'll see what I'm saying. I have a friend who had a very, we were talking, she had a very, very, very hard time making the journey into kosher. Her family owned a lot of restaurants where she lived, when she was growing up. She's like, I didn't realize that potatoes did not come baked in foil. Like you could actually just bake them in an oven, like, because her father had so many restaurants. They ate either in the restaurants or brought restaurant food to that. Like so to go into kosher, and it became like she was living in places that did not have kosher restaurants. It was such a big ordeal for her. It was really very hard, and it was a long process and many, many, many steps, right? She says to me, the thing that to her, it bothers her the most is when you see in the freezer section, like kosher shrimp. Like, why do we need kosher shrimp? We could have other kosher fish, right? Like, what difference does it make? So it's not a kosher fish. So it's clearly not shrimp. It's shaped like, it's kosher fish, shaped like, why? She's like, why? What is Jewish about kosher shrimp? Is it not kosher? No. Can I say you're doing something wrong by eating it? No.
You could say the same thing about so many things, like
correct.
Muslims.
Correct. I'm just saying. I'm
like Shabbos lamps, so you turn it so you're not looking on the light, but you can still open and close the light.
Why?
What?
Why? How do you see the parallel? You're having lights. You're not.
Because you're controlling. There wasn't light, and then you're not. You're turning on the lamp. You're just turning it on.
You're not turning on the lamp. You're not turning. No, you're not. It's on the whole time. It's. I'm gonna add to your case. Shabbos lamps are not the question. Shabbos timers you could argue the case for that, because Shabbos lamp, you're actually not turning anything on and off. You're not touching anything. You're uncovering and covering. It's not.
Shabbos timers do not either. You do it before Shabbos.
I understand. It's halachically permissible. I'm not saying nobody say that Rivka Marga Gestetner all these timers. I'm not saying that. It's halachically. It's a conversation. Okay. Like in the spirit, yeah. The question of not in the spirit of. So her point was, and this is not a halachic thing. Anybody who's eating kosher shrimp is eating kosher. Let's put that out there. They're eating kosher. But the question of the following.
Also, like carb ice cream, though. Like same thing.
Why?
Carb ice cream.
Why? I mean, besides it's gross. I'm sorry. I know you don't eat. I know. Whatever. Whatever.
You have carb ice cream on staple.
It's like vegan cheese. Whatever. I'm saying, like, vegan cheese. Yeah. Exactly. Is there anything technically wrong with it? No. Is there something not super Jewish about it? We could make the case that we have.
Or like. Not everyone does. Many people don't.
A hot plate? I don't know that many people don't.
Many people don't.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Man.
We did for a while. Not because whatever from, but because I was burned out from it.
Yeah, other reason. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Some people don't, because it's not like. I don't know.
No. You're talking about a hot plate. You're talking about a timer. Or you're talking about the different. Those are different. I don't want to get into Hilchos Shabbos here, but we're never gonna pass this. But my point is, it's the love on headspace.
Where's your fashion supposed to come from? Like it's not like. What do you need? What do you need fashion?
Meaning we need clothes to wear. We need clothes to cover our body. We need to have clothes that are flattering to us and that look good. And the attitude that at the end of the season, we can't wear them anymore because they're last year's season. That's last year's stuff. That is what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. Obviously, your clothes have to come from someplace unless you're going to design and sew your own clothes, which I'm not. I'm not advocating. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that. Yeah, I'm going to get off my bandbox right now. I think it's such an important headspace of saying like, yeah, to be a being of yes.
How would you describe the love on headspace?
The love and headspace is that there is that culture that's better than mine, and I need to celebrate my culture. My let's say my stuff are going to follow the Lovin culture. So how do we do bar mitzvahs? Are we doing it? No. So I'm saying a bar mitzvah means kid turned 13 and now is part of the Jewish people. Getting a leave on the Torah. My father used to threaten for my wedding, we're going to have herring and kichel in the shul. My mother's like, don't worry, Rivka Marga, it's not going to happen. Right? I'm not kichel is like these like cook like these egg, these like biscuits kind of thing that they used to eat in the shuls. I don't know, whatever. They're not even crackers. It's another level, whatever. But the question is, how do we do things? Do we look on Instagram before we plan our Shabbos table? Do we look on, the question is do I trust my value system and my culture to have something to say about how things look? How does a beautiful bat mitzvah girl look? How does a bride look? How does a wedding look like? All those things, it's not kosher. I want to be very clear. We're not talking about, God forbid, doing things that are not kosher. I'm talking about the place of this, yeah. Yes. Okay.
So talking about how like basing your values off non-religious things, it's still kosher, but it's like not in the headspace of kosher. It's like what Yaakov was saying is that he guarded the mitzvah and he didn't get into love and headspace.
Exactly. He's saying I didn't get into love and headspace, and I'm putting out there, and then I'm going to move on because we have to do other things in this parsha. What happens when we do fall into love and headspace? How is it, because it's so easy to get there, but I'm doing everything right. I'm doing all the mitzvahs, and so I think like the push of the parsha is to say, wait a second, we can choose what we connect to, and we can choose what we want to do, and really to give us that power, because really that's what the parsha does. The parsha gives us the spiritual power to do, well, anything, but we can pick and choose whatever things are going on. We're like, we could say, in my life, this is one love and thing that I know I struggle with, and I want to work to disengage. That's not a real word. Disentangle, disengage. Yeah. Thank you, Instead. So like I could use the parsha and say, this is the parsha of Yaakov not falling prey to Lavan. I could also choose to not fall prey. Now, it doesn't mean close everything down. It's not going to happen. I want to in that direction. That's my point that I'm saying over here.
Wait, did you say that Yaakov was like lamenting?
I brought different points here. One, yes. Two different things. Two opposing points. On the one hand, that's one point. And the other point is like sometimes we do buy into the love and where Yaakov says, I didn't. So how that's hard to call that one. Okay. So they're gonna go there. Oh, man. Okay, and then so Yaakov davens to Hashem, and he says that Hashem, you told me to come back. We're in chapter 32, verse 10 and 11. He says, I'm humbled by all your kindness and from all the truth that you've given to me. I crossed in this direction with just a stick in my hand, and now I have two camps full of people, and wow, save me please from Esav, from my brother, so we won't have the mother and the children being hit at the same time. And she continues with this prayer. something very, very interesting that we find with righteous people. They never say to God, Magia li, I deserve this, I earned this. Yaakov says to Hashem, I'm humbled by everything that you've given me, and I need to now ask for you to help me in a way of a gift. I'm not, he's not coming to Hashem and saying, I deserve this. He's going to say, he's also not going to say, Hashem, your job is to save me, and I'm going to just sit back and let this happen. He's going to, yes, David, he's going to, yes, rely on Hashem. And at the same time, he's going to do his hishtadlus. He's going to do, what do I need to do to make sure that this happens? What do I need to do to make sure that this end looks like I would like it to look? So he's going to take practical steps. And one of the things in the conversation, I think of that we struggle with a lot in today, is that balance between how much effort do I give anything and how much do I rely on Hashem, and where does one, too much relying on Hashem, I'm gonna like, they tell a joke about this guy who used to pray to God. He wanted to win the lottery. He wanted to want lottery. Every day he's praying, I want to win the lottery. And the angels finally say to God, like, let him win the lottery already. And he's like, and God's like, could he at least buy a ticket? Gotta buy a ticket. So there's a place of what do we need to do? What is our involvement? And at the same time, where do we have this place of we put in so much involvement that we kind of own it and like, okay, God, we don't need you. And really, Yaakov right here, right now, is at the cusp. He's now in Chutz La'aretz. He's not in the Holy Land. And, if we could parallel it to like the Jews in the desert. The Jews in the desert were not in Eretz Yisrael, and God took care of everything. Everything was taken care of. They didn't have to worry about anything. So they knew that everything that they had was from God. Now Yaakov's going into Eretz Yisrael. The Jews are going to also cross into Eretz Yisrael. And then we're going to have that issue of we have to have the army, and we have to have the government, and we have to plant, and we have to grow, and we have to. It's very easy in that space to say, we are awesome. We rock this one. Yay. Thank God we get to live in this amazing, beautiful country, but we do run the risk of saying, like, we did it all. We conquered, we created, we own, and to forget that our country is in fact based on miracles and God and his love and his blessings in every single thing. And to be able to like kind of find that balance between doing and not, being able to do enough that you're really making an honest effort. And at the same time, understanding at the end of the day, all the blessings are coming from Hashem. And this is one of the things that we have over here with Yaakov, where he doesn't say, I deserve all this, you should just give it to me. But he's also making very honest efforts of what you would need to do if you were going to meet somebody who wants to, kill you and whatever. So how do we deal with that? Yes, sorry.
What's the order of, like you said, Hishtadlus and Bitachon should be together?
Right.
So what's the order? You should pray first and then work towards it, or you start working towards it and then praying that?
I think it depends a lot on the situation. So here, for example, Yaakov sends out the messengers. They go to Esav. They come back and they're like, ooh, And then the first thing we see we see happening in the Parsha is that he then splits the camp. Then he davens, and then he's going to go send this massive gift to Esav. So, but in any situation, the place of saying we have to have a multifaceted approach to whatever situation we're facing is something that we're going to learn from Yaakov, which is really not super intuitive to Yaakov. Like if we look at Yaakov as how we see him in the Chumash, he last time he was faced with his brother who wanted to kill him, he left. He didn't stick around to have a conversation with him. And now, after all his work in Lavan's house, and he's grown and he's matured and how he's developed, he's a wait a second. There's not one answer to this. There's the preparing for war, which is in fact preparing in case one camp gets attacked, the other one will survive. They will run. Preparing for davening and preparing to send him a gift. Like many ways we need to approach any issue, and the question of what comes first depends on what's going on. And I think a lot of them overlap. We do things at the same time. We pack our kids' lunches for school and we daven that they should be safe at the same time. Like it's all part of the same parsha. And then he sends him a massive, then he goes to sleep. And in the morning, he's sending a gift off to Esav. And my husband has a Torah chat where he gives Torah. So he shared a very beautiful Torah over here, Shady, that that says that he slept here that night. And he Vayikach min haba biyada, he took what he found, and it's a mincha le'esav achiv, and he gave it as a gift to Esav, his brother. And one of the things that we know in Chassidus, that things that there's this place that we need avoda. You need to work on something. Things that come easily to us are nice, but that isn't really where our avoda is. Like, it doesn't mean we shouldn't do the things that come easily to us. I'm kind of expanding on what he said. It's not that we don't do things that come easily to us, but if we only are sticking in our very easy comfort zone, that's not where avoda is. Avoda is where we're working. And so the Kutzker has a vart that minhaba biyadav, the things that were easy for him to reach, that whenever we do things that are just easy for us, that's a gift for Esav. That's not avoda. That's not serving Hashem. That's just sort of, kind of serving, it's a gift for Esav. And really what we need to do is we do need to put in our effort, and we do need to, doesn't mean that we don't do the things that we're good at and the things that are easier for us, but the place of where our avoda actually lies is going to be someplace a few steps past our comfort zone. And we're only going to get there when we're willing to stretch ourselves a little bit. And he prepares a very, very big gift. And he says to the people, he sends enough of every animal, male and female, that they like as many male animals as you need for the females in order to have, for them to couple and to have more animals. So you're going to find the different animals have different amounts of male to female proportion. And he tells each group he sends the people who are going to take care of it. And he says, stretch it out so that when Esav sees, he doesn't see like a whole massive group. He sees like a big group. And then while these are coming closer over the horizon, he sees like the shadows of the next group coming. So like the place of, you ever give a little kid presents? If you give them all their presents at once, like that's not so fun. Like, oh, that's great, right? But if you give them one, and then you give them another one, and then you give them another one, right? So that's really what Yaakov is going to do with Esav. He's going to give them this incredible gift, goats and sheep and camels and all kinds of stuff. But he's also going to space it out so that it feeds his eye as well. Esav being a very greedy person, that it would be feed him, on that level. Yes, customs as far as presents, but it could be. We could tag it like that. The interesting thing, the interesting Hanukkah connection that we're going to have, because we know that what happens in the middle of the night, this is before he sends the gifts. What happens? Yaakov is ferrying his family over the river, and Yaakov ends up by himself. Where are we? Okay. And chapter 32, verse 25. Yaakov is left by himself, and he struggles with the man till the dawn breaks, and he sees that he can't overcome him. The person sees he can't overcome Yaakov, so he hits him in his upper thigh, and he dislocates Yaakov's thigh, and then Rashi says, who is this person that Yaakov struggles with? He struggles with the Malach of Esav, that he struggles all night with Esav, with Esav's Malach, his whoever his spiritual counterpart was, and then when Yaakov when the angel sees, like, I can't, the angel has one time to say Shira, Rashi says, and he wants to go and he wants to leave, and Yaakov's like, I'm not going to leave until you bless me. And he gives, what is the bracha that he gives him? Anybody know? He says to him, what is your name? The angel says, what's your name? He says, that's Yaakov. And the angel says, Lo Yaakov Yemar Od, you won't be called Yaakov anymore. Kim Yisrael, you'll be called Yisrael. Ki Sarisem Elokim ve'emanashim batufa, because you struggled with man and with God and you prevailed. Okay, and then Yaakov says, what's your name? And he's like, what difference making my name? I don't have a name. And then he leaves. A couple of things. There are definitely commentaries that talk about more modern commentators who talk about that if Yaakov is left by himself and he struggles with a man, who's he struggling with? Himself. That he's really struggling with himself. That it's the night before, he's in the dark, he's in a dark place, and that he's struggling with himself about what is the right course of action for me to be doing, and sort of a lesson for us that there is this place that we struggle. One of there's a Torah that my husband always shares. He didn't share it on his chat, but he always shares. It's something that I love so much. It's a Torah from Reb Leibele Eger, who's a grandson of Rabbi Akiva Eger, who was not a chassid, but his grandson was. And he says that we were given the wrong name. If you look at the pasuk, it says that you struggled with man and with God, and you prevailed. So our name should have been Tuchal, that we prevailed. We should have been called B'nai Tuchal. What's this B'nai Yisrael business? We should be called B'nai Tuchal, the people who prevailed. And Reb Leibele Eger says, because it's not about the winning, it's about the struggle. The place that we think, and Tanya talks about this a lot also, the place that we think that we shouldn't be struggling is not correct. We want to just like everything should be smooth and everything should be easy. We have moments of that. Like we have spaces where we're kind of, everything is like, it's all working and everything, but that's not, it doesn't, we know that that's not going to stay. It doesn't stay in that mode for forever. Our job is, our job is to continue to struggle, whether it's Yaakov by himself, whether it's in our dark spaces or in our place of moral uncertainty, the place of understanding that it's not only it's okay to struggle, but it's actually, there's something very special about understanding that the struggle has worth. And what happens? Yaakov says to the Malach, I'm not letting you go until you bless me. Whenever we're in a place of struggle, wherever we're in a place of darkness, we have to understand we are not going to leave until we are blessed by that experience, until we end up being enriched by whatever we went through. Then we can say, okay, now we can let it go. Because until we end up finding the blessing in whatever it happened, and I pray for all of us that our darkness should never be so dark, that it should be darkness relative to us. We should never know true sorrow, true pain, but wherever it is that our place of darkness is, we have to understand, and we have to know, and we have to know it in our head, and we have to know it in our hearts so deep that whatever it is that we go through, and that we are willing to struggle, and we don't just throw up our hands and say, I'm out of here, but we're willing to fight it and make it work. We are not going to leave until we are enriched by that experience. We should be able to see it with our eyes, that our struggles have blessings that we're able to see and appreciate. I wish I could say we should never have any struggles, but that just isn't true of the life that we live right now. Our struggles should be small, our victories should be great, and our blessings should be even greater that we see out of those. So that's what I want to take out of Yaakov struggling with the angel. Thank you. Another interesting thing that we're going to find, because Hashem is going to actually reiterate the name change soon, is that we're going to end up using Yaakov and Yisrael all the time in the Chumash. It's two names that are going, it's not like, oh, your name was changed and now this is your new name, right? Avram was changed to Avraham, Sarah is changed to Sarah. We never hear later on in the Chumash that they're referred to back with their old names. With Yaakov, we find both of those names going on, right? So if you look, one of the other meanings of Yisrael, the root in there is Sar, of being like an officer or like high up. Right? It here is talking about Kisarisa because of the struggle, but later on when Hashem gives him the name, we also see the root of Hashem's, like Hashem's Sar, Hashem's message, like a greatness. And we're going to find that Yaakov and Yisrael are going to be used throughout the Chumash, all the way through. We're going to have both of those names coming through. There's conversations about when one gets used versus the other. There's not a real great consensus. Some of the Mefarshim, more modern Mefarshim, want to talk about the idea that Yaakov is going to be used anytime we talk about Yaakov's family stuff, and Yisrael is going to be talking about anytime we talk about the Jewish people, something Jewish people happening. It's going to use the name Yisrael. It's not 100% consistent all the way through, so that's why it's not like a full. It's an idea, but it's not like doesn't carry through all the way unless we just don't see it. But one of the things that Hasidus talks about is that Yaakov and Yisrael represent not two people. two sides of the same person. And just like last week we spoke about how we both have a Rachel and a Leah, we both have a Yaakov and Yisrael. We both have Yaakov, that place of struggle, of of hard, of things, of having to work through things, and Yisrael, where like things are easy and good, and we aced it, and really we're going to have both of those things come, and we have from Yaakov, we're going to have the power to do both. We're going to have the power to be able to struggle in a healthy way, and we're also going to have the place to be able to, I was going to say coast, but that's not the word. It's like, to be in that good space, to really feel connected, to really feel that what I'm doing matters, and my relationship with Hashem is clear and unmuddied, and all those, like, we have those spaces, but we also don't have those spaces, and we're going to have both of those really going on at the same time, because Yaakov is you're going to find chapters where he's going to go back and forth between Yaakov and Yisrael, and really that's us. We have moments of greatness and we have moments of great struggle, and we have to embrace both of them and be able to use Yaakov's power to be able to do what we need to be doing, to really to ace the place that we need to be moving out of or struggling through. Okay, and then okay, we have 10 minutes. Do we want to like jump to Dina, or do we want to continue with this? I want to say one more thing about Yaakov and Esav, and then we're going to go to Dina. Okay. In Chassidus, we there's a question. Yaakov and Esav end up meeting, and they hug each other, and he kisses him, and they're like, "Yay, let's." Esav's like, "Wow, this is amazing. Let's like go continue together." Like, evidently the fight fell down, and he's ready to like just embrace his brother. And Yaakov says, like, "We'll catch up. We'll have all the kids, and we'll catch up, and you go ahead." And Chassidus talks about the idea, and we mentioned it very briefly, I think, that Esav is the more powerful, is the more powerful of the two brothers. Esav is the power of tohu, he's the power of chaos. Yaakov is the power of tikkun, he's the power of lights in vessels. Esav's just like, boom, he's like nuclear energy. So Chassidus says, which Yitzchak saw. Yitzchak saw Yaakov and Esav working together, which was not going to happen. It was not his tikkun to do. We spoke about Yitzchak. So here Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov's gone. He's been gone for 20 years. He hasn't just been building a family and tending sheep. He's been like doing deep avodah. He's been doing his spiritual work. He's been gathering sparks that are out there by Lavan. And now he says, I'm ready for Mashiach, but I need my brother. Our forces need to combine together for us to really do this. So back to like, why does the Ramban's like, why did he bother his brother? Because Yaakov's coming to Eretz Yisrael. He's like, we are ready for Mashiach, but I can't do this by myself. I must have my brother with me. Is he ready? Has he spent the last 20 years doing his avodah so that he's ready for us to come together, take his incredible lights into my vessels? And this is awesome. And this would be fantastic. And Yaakov actually meets Esav, and he hasn't done any of this. He's not ready for this at all. And Esav is like so inspired, and he's like, wow, we can do this. And Yaakov's like, if we do this now, if we like try to force a messianic thing right now, Yaakov says that all the young sheep and he has young children and young animals, and they're all going to die. And Kabbalah says there's all the neshamas that were supposed to come out of Esav. Once he was rectified, all these great neshamas would come out of him, and they just wouldn't happen. We would never have those, because Esav didn't do his part. So Yaakov's like, you know what? This isn't happening yet. We're not ready for Mashiach yet. Esav hasn't actually done his avodah. So we're going to need to, as we see, this exile has schlepped out as we are slowly working our way through Esav, and until we get to that place where we're able to put the pieces together of the power of Esav and the vessels of Yaakov, and to be able to put those pieces together. So Yaakov came to the conversation. He's like, ready? And Esav's like, no, ready for what? Like I was busy. I was like hunting and killing for the last 20 years. I had no idea like I was supposed to do anything. And so Yaakov realizes that they're not ready to move into the next stage of world messianic history. And so he's like, Esav, you continue, and I'm gonna just do my, I'll just do my thing on my own. so they don't. So they have this meeting, and then we don't hear that Yaakov and Esav have any more fights between themselves. We don't. That's not where the Chumash does not go in that direction after this. We know from sitting in 2021, almost 2022, we know like the fight has continued. The Yaakov and Esav conflict was not over so quickly, and correct, they themselves aren't going to fight, but it is not over. It is not over yet. So we're going to still, hopefully we're going to get to see the end of that one. But so that's what happens. So they split. So they split up, and Yaakov continues. And then the next thing that happens, okay, we have the story of Dinah going out. We have 5 minutes. We're going to try to do this in 5 minutes. Do this 5 minutes. Dinah going out. It says Vatete, chapter 34. Vatete Dinah bas Leah asher yodel Yaakov l'ros b'vnos haaretz. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, who was born to Yaakov, goes out to see the daughters of the land, and Shechem sees her, and he takes her, and he humbles her, as they say in Chumash, and then he decides that he loves her and he wants to marry her, and so he and his father come to Yaakov to negotiate. First of all, by the way, we have over here at the end, just before this happens, Yaakov buys a piece of land over here next to Shechem in chapter 33, verse 19. That he buys this place from Hamor, the father of Shechem. He buys it for 100 kshita, however amount that is. So that's the next he buys there, and then so she goes and she's trying to see what's happening, and he finds her and he takes her and he abuses her, and then he wants to marry her, and her brothers come back, and they from the field, Yaakov waits, and they say, great idea, but our sister can't marry somebody who's not circumcised, so you and your whole city should get circumcised, and then we'll be able to have our sister marry you. And what happens on day 3, which we know from Avram already, day 3 is a very, very painful day. On day 3, Shimon and Levi go through the city and they kill all the males, and they take Dinah back, and they come to Yaakov, and Yaakov says to them, what'd you do? He says to them that you've made us like unpalatable to the people around us. We're so small in number. How could you do this? And they answer him, is our sister going to be made into a harlot? We're not letting this happen to our sister.
Why did Yaakov let it happen? It says
right.
Yaakov kept silent.
Right. Yaakov is definitely waiting for them. He doesn't take the lead on these negotiations. He's definitely right. He's definitely. It seems to be interesting. Like it's an dynamic what's going on over here. And if you notice, Yaakov doesn't say to them that they are wrong for what they did. What does he say in verse 30? Adina, what does he say in verse 30?
Yaakov said to Shimon and to Levi, you have made my mind troubled, creating hostility between me and the inhabitants of the land and the Canaanites and the Hittites. I have only a few men. They can gather against me and attack me, and then I and my household will be destroyed. So
is he saying what they did was wrong? No. What's he saying? Your timing is terrible. Your timing is terrible. How could you do this now? We're so small. If we get attacked, we're going to all die, whatever. So he's not actually saying what they did was wrong. And in fact, the Mefarshim tell us that the norm for a Bnei Noach, for a Ben Noach who doesn't keep their mitzvahs, they're actually punishable by death. And the fact that the whole city stood by silently and let this happen to Dinah under their watch, where it was not the norm then, like halachically, they are punishable by death. At the same time, Yaakov was like, "This is terrible. Like, you can't do this now. Like, we're just coming here. You can't do this. You can't do this." But the question that I want to look into for a second, because we really have 2 minutes left of the class, is Dinah. it says Vatetse Dina Basleya, that she goes out. And if you look at the Bali Musar, they say, well, what do you expect? You leave your house and like things happen. Like she should have stayed at home. Why was she going out? Where was she going? What was she doing? And you see what happens when you leave the house. That's what happens. The Rebbe has a very, very beautiful sikha where he says, where was Dina going? Where was Dina going? And why does the Torah call her Bas Leah? It seems quite not nice. In the beginning of the Parsha, it says Vatetse Dina Bas Leah, that who gave right, and then Rashi says about Bas Leah, Velo Bas Yaakov, she's not the daughter of Yaakov. Ella al Shem Yitziyasa Nikras Bas Leah, but her outgoingness makes her be called the daughter of Leah, because Leah was also Yetzanit. She was also somebody going out. Shene'emar Vatetse Leah Likrato. That Leah went out to meet him. And this is where the expression comes, like mother, like daughter. And I was like, how does Rashi say something so nasty? That's not very nice to say, like mother, like daughter. So in classic Hasidic fashion, he unpacks it a little bit. And he says, where was Leah going? When it says that Leah went out, likrata, where was she going? And that was from last week's Parsha, when Rachel and Leah end up switching nights when Yaakov would come to them, and Leah is going to have Yaakov come, and she was so happy to have Yaakov come. She was so happy to have more shvatim. So Vateitzena Leah likrato. So Leah goes to Yaakov to say, "You're coming to me tonight." So her going out is not a bad thing. That means if you're going to say like mother, like daughter, then Dina's going out is also not going to be a bad thing. And the Rebbe says that one of the reasons that Leah has so many children, she has 6 of the tribes, is because she has an incredible, incredible power to pull down different spiritual energies. She gives birth to children who their names reflect their essence. And it's not just she's very fertile. Yes, she's very fertile, but also she's able to get the soul source, Reuven, the way of having a relationship with Hashem from sight, and Shimon of having a relationship with Hashem with from hearing, all different kinds of ways of having a relationship, different personalities and different behaviors of how we have a relationship with Hashem. And the Torah tells us that Leah had actually brought down 7 abilities, not 6. She has 6 boys, but she has 7 children. And to Dina, she gave her personal ability. We know that in the beginning, it talked about that Leah was supposed to marry Esav. She didn't want to marry Esav, and she was crying, and she ends up marrying Yaakov, right? What would have happened had she married Esav? So the Talmud tells us she would have brought him to good. She would, right? And she's like, I don't want that avodah. I don't want to marry the addict. I don't want to marry the person. That's not my avodah. I don't want to do it. But that ability to take ultimate evil and turn it into good is a spiritual power that she has, that she gives to Dina. When she is able to switch, remember, Dina's born as a result of Leah switching her out. That ability to encounter evil and make it good is something that Dina has. So when Dina goes to Shechem, Lerotet B'not Haaretz, the Rebbe's like, what do you think she was doing? She's not going, this is my ad-libbing sikh a little bit. She's not going to check out the fashion in Shechem. She's not going to see what do they do there? Like, what are their activities that they're doing? She's a daughter of Leah. She knows how to go and influence people. She's going to see she comes from the only monotheistic family in the hood. She's going to teach the girls about Hashem. Now it happens that she personally has a terrible encounter with Shechem over here. She has a terrible encounter with Shechem, and yet the Gemara tells us that there was an incredible spark in Shechem that Dina pulls out. Dina ends up getting pregnant from this encounter. She ends up having a daughter who ends up marrying. Who she ends up marrying? She ends up marrying Yosef. Asnat, who eventually ends up in Egypt and ends up marrying Yosef, the Medrash says, is Dina's daughter. And she has the ability to have the only 2 grandchildren who were born in exile, who are counted as tribes. That ability to go into the depths of darkness and have children there who and Yaakov's everything, That's Leah to Dina to Asna to Menashe to Ephraim. That's the line. And so, I think as a woman, it's probably one of my biggest nightmares. This conversation, what happened. I'm not saying that it all was rosy and good, but the fact that she was able to go into a situation and to pull out holy sparks and to bring it into fruition, that's an incredible thing. I want to give us all a bracha. This is the week of actualizing our potential. I think you could take another lesson. You could whatever. This is kind of how I see it, of being able to really, really identify who we are and who we want to be and what we're capable of, and to not be afraid to shine that power and to really shine it for ourselves first and foremost, to be able to look at ourselves with love and compassion, and to be able to look at the people around us and say, how can I reach out and how can I help them? Have an awesome rest of the day and have an amazing Shabbos.